Florence Carla and Julien Tavernier are having an affair and plan to kill Florence's husband, Simon, a wealthy arms dealer and Julien's boss. Julien is an ex-Foreign Legion soldier and, using the skills he learned at war, climbs into Simon's office, murders him, and sets it up to look like a suicide. It's the perfect crime, except he forgot to remove the rope, goes back in, and gets stuck in the elevator. Julien's car is stolen by a young couple, a small-time crook named Louis and a florist named Veronique. Florence sees the car go past with Veronique leaning out the window and assumes Julien has run off with her instead. Louis pretends to be Julien, but this is exposed by a German acquaintance, Horst. Louis, feeling threatened, shoots and kills Horst. Julien is mistakenly arrested for the death of Horst, though he is actually guilty in the case of the murder of someone else. Elevator to the Gallows has a lot of mistaken identities and misunderstandings based on these identities, but there is more going on here than farce. Look, maybe this is nothing, but I can't help but watch the movie from the perspective of the politics and philosophy of the screenwriter, Roger Nimier. I'll explain. Nimier was a French author who was often associated with the literary right wing of his country, specifically with a group called the Hussards. You might call it a reactionary group, an assembly of writers who opposed France's slide toward the political left, and the emergence of existentialism, a modern philosophy that abandoned previously held traditional beliefs about the self. Existentialism posits that existence precedes essence. A personality or a meaning to one's life is not given to us at birth. Who we are and our purpose in life are both decided by our surroundings and by ourselves. We have a dizzying amount of freedom, which existentialist philosophers sometimes view as overwhelming. Existence is our being alive. Essence is our purpose and who we are. If existence precedes essence, the meaning of our lives is what we make of it later on. This flies in the face of traditionally held beliefs about God and predestination. From that perspective, it is the opposite. Essence precedes existence. God put us on this earth for a specific purpose, and he, being all-knowing, already knows the outcome. Nimier rejected this idea that we choose our own identities. He rejected existentialism in favor of the traditional beliefs. He rejected that we choose the meaning of our lives and wrote a film in which such attempts are shown to be both disastrous and against the social order. Louis creates an identity for himself, not in the way that existentialist philosophers actually believe we do, but in a farcical way in which to be mocked. Louis pretends to be Julien, and this lands him in serious trouble with the law. Louis is portrayed as a reckless youth, the kind of youth who had begun to embrace existentialism in France in the post-World War II era. Julien and Veronique, assuming that they will be caught, sent to prison, and never see each other again, form a suicide pact. Ennui and angst are features of existentialism. Existential angst is an overwhelming feeling arising from the experience of human freedom and responsibility. Louis and Veronique, faced with the consequences of that freedom and what it led to, agree to kill themselves. They fail because, well, the screenwriter perhaps wants us to think that existentialists can't even kill themselves properly. For those who oppose existentialism, one of their weapons is the idea that traditional ways of viewing ourselves gives us a kind of certainty to who we are and our purpose in life, even if that purpose is impossible to prove. In the end, Julien and Florence are found out, as newly developed pictures prove their affair and give the police a motive for the murder of Florence's husband. For those who oppose existentialism, we are a static picture, unchanging, developed by someone else and with no agency. The truth of who we are is laid bare in the final scenes of the film, or at least the truth as the screenwriter sees it. Traditionalists and reactionaries often see and portray modern thinkers this way, unbearably gripped with ennui, but in truth, instead of fearing the inherent meaninglessness of life, existentialists and other modern thinkers embrace it and create their own meaning, sometimes through the betterment of others. Also, even though angst is inevitable, there is also a comforting liberation in knowing that once we are gone, there is nothing we can do to further alter the world in which we have exited. The task we have given ourselves is complete. Existentialism does not posit that life is suddenly without a magical purpose, only that it never had such purpose, and in realizing this, we can begin the hard work of making our lives have newly created meaning. So, why does Elevator to the Gallows try to make its point against existentialism and modern, emerging values? Well, because Elevator to the Gallows is a reactionary film. A reactionary movement is a right-wing political push to return to previously held beliefs and values. While garden-variety social conservatism aims to keep things the way they are and not change, a reactionary aims to actively turn back the clock and remove changes and progress that are deemed harmful to the previous social order. When a tradition is called into question, or some people are granted rights, or the world moves forward in one way or another, whether in philosophical circles or political circles, reactionary groups form to kneecap anything resembling progress. One would think that the French of all people would be uniformly opposed to anything even resembling reactionary politics after the occupation by Nazi Germany during World War II, but a reactionary movement in France preceded this in the late 19th century under the organization Action Française. This movement essentially wanted France to return to monarchism to erase much of the progress made after the French Revolution. The modern form of reactionary politics in my part of the world is the alt-right, part of the neo-reactionary movement popularized on the internet that ties into white supremacy and modern fascism. In fact, Elevator to the Gallows, though respected, was also criticized for being fascist at heart. This is partly due to what was said earlier, but also because the German tourist extols virtues of his people and dismisses the idea that the Germans wanted war. He is the victim of a fatal gunshot brought on by Louis mistakenly thinking a cigar was a gun. A German World War II apologist portrayed as the victim, and France, or modernity in general, portrayed as the aggressor. Film critic Raymond Board called Julien Tavernier the screenwriter's vision of a reactionary hero. A good observation. It's important that we can spot reactionaries in film and in life. Hi everyone, Happy New Year from me to you. I hope that you liked this episode, and I also hope that you click subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you never miss an episode. If you like the show and want to support it, you can click on the orange Patreon link. And that's that. I'll see you in 2019.